So, as far as recording episodes goes, I feel like I actually like this one quite a bit, just mostly because of how simple it is to really define, to be honest, because I can actually define every single thing that I'm going to talk about on this episode with one particular word. One. And it is misunderstanding or misunderstood. And that's supposed to cover a baby mama story, that's supposed to cover a period story, that's supposed to cover, like, it's that comprehensive. But all in all, I am going to get to a bunch of those stories, but I am going to start from our first round of misunderstanding by calling out a future baby mom that is so for the street, she ended up being exposed for attending 2 different baby showers wearing the same dress for 2 different men. And to make this a lot clearer for the rest of you that might not entirely get this, she was pretty much the pregnant woman that is in those baby showers that is expecting all of those gifts. So technically, she pretty much made 2 men believe that she's having a baby with each of them at least. So you'd want to ask at this point, why is this a misunderstanding? And to that, I'll tell you that it's because of what the person who exposed her felt that she was actually doing. But to explain that, we need to ask our regular question, which is, so apparently, according to the person that exposed her for doing this, the whole belief was that she was trying to embarrass her family because she was the sister to one of the men who believed that this supposed pregnant woman was having their baby. But the reality of it is, I don't think that was entirely the case. I am going to explain exactly what my thoughts are on it, but let me first read the article because it says, and I quote, "A pregnant lady has been outed for lying to 2 different men that they are each responsible for her unborn baby. She attended 2 different baby showers at different times with the men pinned the child's paternity on, but both guys were unaware of the game. The woman was exposed on Facebook by a lady known as Tati Riches, who claims to be the sister to one of the men. Tati shared photos of the soon-to-be mother wearing the same dress at different baby showers with the men she supposedly made believe will be her baby daddies. She warned people to beware of people like the lady and noted that she wanted to embarrass her family, but she would embarrass her first. Tati Riches wrote, and I quote, "Like I said, 2 different baby showers, 2 different niggas, same dress, and the bitch out here lying. She wanna embarrass my family, I'ma embarrass her, beware of the hoes." End quote. Now, of course, I personally do believe that this babe, of course, was playing one of these guys. The only thing is that I don't think that either one of them is probably even the father to the kid. And to be quite honest, it's not something that's particularly foreign as a thought process because, and this is in the same article, let me just continue on, because it says, and I quote, "In similar news, a Kenyan man has revealed how he discovered that his wife cheated on him with multiple men and he was not the biological father of their child. Atebe explained that he found out about his wife's infidelity by reading her messages and saw that she informed 3 different men that they were each the father of her daughter. Her husband contacted the 3 men and they all went for a DNA test which revealed that the child belongs to none of them. According to Atebe, they intend to shock her on her birthday, which is blah blah, by each coming with a DNA result proving that she lied to all of them." He wrote, and I quote, "I found my wife cheating through SMS. She told 3 guys that they were the biological father of my daughter. I did my investigation and I met all 3 men in private. We did a DNA test and results say we are not the biological father. My wife don't want to know that I know I'm not the biological father of our daughter. Date blah blah is my wife's birthday and we all plan to give her the gift she will never forget. I invited the 3 guys and each guy will carry a copy of the DNA results we give to her. We plan to surprise her with the DNA results. I hope she will enjoy her birthday." End quote. End of story. Now, in this particular case, you can clearly see some of these babes are getting piped from one dude and then they are quite literally pinning it on other dudes. To which I still go back to a statement that I once said. Women choose their baby daddies. And with this dose of realism with these 2 stories, I feel like I'm comfortable enough to start this episode by saying, welcome to Breaktime on West Side, your number 1 Breaktime podcast, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya. The man on the mic is a man who still believes that y'all should be safe. Because these babes are about to make some of you fathers and you're not even signed up to that shit yet. He's a man who likes his women the same exact way he likes his yogurt. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. The show is Tweet Street, the show where we take a deep dive into Twitter, pull up a couple of tweets and break them down a little bit. Now, as usual, if you know the drill, you can repeat it after me. If you don't know the drill, it's okay, I'ma say it for you. And if you know the drill but you haven't been participating, then I don't know what you're waiting for so damn long for. Because this is your opportunity to be a contributor of the podcast by submitting different tweets that you feel that we should discuss, whether you find them on Facebook or on IG or on Twitter. I'll explain that in a little bit, because it's a very simple drill. It almost sounds like a song and it goes like this. You see that tweet, you like that tweet, you want us to discuss that tweet, you send that tweet. You send it to the DMs of @BugakaTheD, which happens to be my personal Twitter handle, and I will take it from there and handle it accordingly. On Facebook or on IG, if it happens to be a screenshot, a screen grab that was taken from Twitter, or it's even a part of a reel, then the place to send it to is @Breaktime on Westside on Facebook or on IG. The DMs are always open, and I will take it from there, and I will handle it accordingly. Now, I have a bunch of misunderstood or misunderstanding type tweets that I need to discuss, and I am going to get into those real quick. But before I get into that, I need to discuss a quick story that I saw that was actually from the beginning of this month, but I don't know how it just evaded me all the way till just recently. Now, there's a Kenyan woman who ended up calling off an engagement with her fiance after the fiance asked her to cut off communication with her baby daddy. Okay, alright, this is interesting. Considering that there's a baby daddy and this is a single mom, there's definitely about to be some complicated shit. So I'm gonna read the story for you. And quick disclaimer, these are her words. So it says, and I quote, "A few days ago I called off my engagement. My fiance was good. He loves me. He has no problem with taking care of me and my daughter fully, but there are things I can never compromise no matter how good you are to me. And one of them is the relationship my daughter has with her father. That has always been my rule. I broke up with my baby daddy, but he didn't break up with his child. The bond my daughter has with her dad is something I can never compromise just to make the man I'm dating feel nice. My child is loved. My daughter is well taken care of. My little girl has a father, a very responsible father, and I cannot break the bond they have just to get married or to fit your needs. I also understand many men date bitter single moms who are willing to even change their children's identity to that of the new man they are dating or married to. Many single moms even change their SIM cards. In worst cases, others even neglect their kids just to make their lovers happy." End quote. And she attached the screenshot of the long ass message that she said to whatever it is that he said. But anyways, first of all, I'm gonna address what a bunch of people were saying about this shit on Twitter, because apparently a lot of people are claiming that this babe is probably cheating on her fiance and she's screwing the baby daddy, to which I don't entirely agree, because I can get where the mom, or should I say the single mom, is at, this babe. I can get where the baby daddy is at, and I can also get where this supposed fiance is, because it's a very complicated situation, because you wouldn't want to deprive your child of her biological father's influence, especially if it's a good influence. You get me? Plus, if you add the fact that this guy is around and he actually has a good relationship with the daughter, like, I don't see why the hell she would want to end such a good relationship just because she's supposed to be getting married to another dude, even though this guy is promising to want to take care of this babe and all. And I can totally understand that. But let's look at it from the fiance's perspective for a little bit, because you wouldn't want to try and assert authority like a father, and this child can probably say that she only takes her orders from the mom and her biological dad. You wouldn't want that kind of disrespect. Also, different men have been raised differently. So if, say, for example, the fiance is very conservative and the baby daddy is a particularly liberal person, you find that the kid might be allowed to do certain things and might not be allowed to do certain things one way or another, depending on which dad she goes to see. And that kind of teaching and that mix-up can actually cause a bit of a rift, because it might actually end up getting to a point where the mom might actually have to choose sides just so that she can actually resolve the entire issue, which is a very tricky situation, especially considering that this is a young girl we're talking about. So the parenting styles of a liberal and a conservative can be heaven and earth apart, as opposed to something like if it was a boy. Not that I'm being sexist or anything. But all in all, you kind of think about it, this babe always randomly, or should I say occasionally, going to see the baby daddy because they're discussing stuff about the kid might actually seem a little bit sus to the dude, because even though those are the biological parents, the fact that this guy's come in to take care of this child fully means that he should also be included in such discussions, right? And if that's the particular case that he's trying to avoid, then I can get why some people might feel like this babe is probably cheating on the fiancé with the baby daddy, because it's not uncommon. And when you look at the kind of attachment the two people who've been shagging for a particularly long while have, and they constantly meet together, and on top of that there's a kid that's making them meet a lot more than usual, it's not particularly hard for those same two people to start shagging again. Because they might have a misunderstanding, they might not be together currently, but it's not like at a point of, I guess, weakness or horniness, they wouldn't look at each other and be like, you know what, how about we relive the old times and shit. Like, that's particularly possible, but I don't think it's always the case. And for the most of you that feel like most relationship problems stem from infidelity, you can always try and get your heads out of that shit, but for the most part, I don't entirely think that this can be a case of infidelity. It could be, it couldn't be, but it doesn't necessarily say too much. But either way, I am going to leave it at that because I do have a bunch of misunderstood tweets to bring out. So, on to our very first tweet of this episode. Why are so many decent people single nowadays? 1. Self-aware. They know their worth. Once you become self-aware, the dating pool significantly decreases. 2. Choice. They've experienced abusive relationships in the past and choose solitude over more abuse. 3. Self-improvement. They are taking time to work on their self. Once you know your worth, you will attract a better quality partner. 4. Games. They're tired of all the games. I've never really dated and have yet to take the plunge. To be honest, not appealing to me. From what I read and hear from others, crazy is the game. 5. Patience. Many others will settle. They aren't willing to settle. They will wait and take the time to develop a friendship first, then go from there. So many are quick to start sleeping together, living together, etc. before you truly know the person or yourself. 6. Freedom. I'm kinda digging the single life. I can come and go when I want, take any trip I want to, eat where I want to, see a movie I want, visit and meet up with who I want to, while taking the time to learn about myself. And you can honestly add a bunch of other reasons here, like 7, probably you're ugly, so people just don't approach you. 8, you're antisocial and you're not getting out there to actually see what the dating pool is like. I feel like some people usually like to throw in a lot of these reasons to talk about why they're single and why they're not in a relationship, blah, blah, blah. And yet the reality of it is, it's not like it's that hard to actually figure out why they're not dating. And you can blame a bunch of things, but I honestly don't think that that's entirely the case. Because when you look at it, yes, you could blame a bunch of these reasons, but it actually comes down to reason number 2 and something called circumstance. So choice and circumstances. Because when you're talking about being self-aware, they know their worth. Once you become self-aware, the dating pool significantly decreases. Can you really say that it decreases? I think it opens you up to a different kind of dating pool, and you kind of leave dirty water onto cleaner bits, if I can probably put it that way. But yes, maybe you can say that it decreases. Choice is probably the best one that I can look at, where it's like, they've experienced abusive relationships and they choose solitude over more abuse. This one can probably make more sense, although I'd argue that people's options, or at least what it is that they want in a partner, actually does influence whether they get a partner or not. And that's probably more of the choice that I'd probably speak of, not necessarily abusive relationships, because I don't think there's that many people that have gone through that many abusive relationships. Yes, you might have had a toxic spat here and there, but it doesn't mean that you are in like a full-on abusive relationship where it's like, I don't want to have anything to do with men and shit like that. Then you look at shit like self-improvement, that one sounds more like a guy thing, but I know the babes do it as well. People will talk about games, patience, freedom, but to be very honest, it's mostly a case of choice, because when you look at some people who talk about how, oh, I can't find a decent person because I'm this nice person, but there's so many pieces of shit out here. Like, you cannot continue blaming the dating pool being shit, and yet you're not even approaching it in the slightest. Like, there are a lot of shitty people in the dating pool, but it doesn't mean that everyone in the dating pool is shit. And I think that's something that a lot of people usually confuse and tend to get particularly wrong. Because when you find someone who is saying that, the dating pool is shit, there's a bunch of dudes out here and they're players, blah, blah, blah. And this is someone who is particularly antisocial, doesn't leave the house, is in an office with, say, particularly old, decent guys that don't want to cheat on their wives, or, that just in a place that doesn't have a lot of, young male activity or just suitable male activity. And they pretty much do the office home, and they pretty much sit and chill at home and chill with their female friends. How the fuck are you going to find a decent guy to date? I don't know. Is it just me that thinks about it like this? And it's not just something that affects the women. This affects the guys as well. You find the guy busy talking about, oh, these babes out here, they're not marriage material, blah, blah, blah. But this is a guy that will pretty much do work and home, only chills with the boys, and that's usually when probably they're chilling at some homie's place, playing FIFA or some shit, or they've just gone out for drinks, or they've gone for a road trip as niggas, and they're not particularly meeting any new women and shit, and they're talking about how the dating pool is shit. Like, what dating pool are you talking about? But evidently, your reasons for being single usually fall under two categories. It's either by choice or by circumstance. You can talk about circumstance all you want, but I don't think circumstances will affect things as much for you as choice will. Because the choice of the kind of partner you want, the choice of where you go to look for those partners, and your choice of mindset and outlook towards dating and the kind of partner that you'd want to be with are all going to affect the kind of partner that you'd want to be with and whether you can actually be with them. So all in all, this is mostly a choice issue rather than a circumstance issue, and whatever the hell that's gonna be thrown around here is all mostly a matter of choice. But then again, I might be wrong, but either way, I'm gonna leave it at that and move it on to our very next tweet of this episode. Relationships are so hard these days due to selfish gender wars. If two people came together defined as just souls and drown out all this toxic noise out here and just simply made their own relationship governance that works for them, life would be so much simpler. And I actually agree with this. I really agree with this. It's kind of like what I was talking about last week on Tweet Street. That's episode 392, where I was busy talking about, okay, actually, wait 1 second. Actually, no. I don't entirely agree with this. I don't think that the gender wars affect relationships much as they affect getting into those relationships. And let me just try and explain it like this. If you're getting into gender wars, then you probably don't have a partner yet. Otherwise, the gender wars wouldn't really matter all that much to you. If they did, then probably your partner supports you in that shit. But all in all, when you kind of look at it, gender wars will mostly affect people that are single. Because single people are the ones that I guess probably don't have as much experience with relationships, or don't have the experiences of being with a partner at that time or recently, where they can actually speak on the goodness of appreciating the other partner and shit, and the struggles that the other partner will go through. Because when you look at people in relationships aren't particularly hard because there's a gender war. Relationships are a lot harder now because there's too many people that are very individualistic. And let me just try and explain this a little bit. Because when you look at people in relationships today, there's a lot of people that want to have their cake and eat it rather than complain that the other person is getting off easy because he's a man or because they're a woman or some shit. Like, it's easy for a lot of guys to be like, oh no, a guy should be allowed to cheat because, us guys all about sexual variety, blah, blah, blah. But that's essentially an individual thing. That's not you caring for your partner per se. That's you as a guy just caring about your own sexual desires and not necessarily the emotional or sexual desires of your partner. With babes, it's kind of like saying that your man needs to be able to pay your bills, and your man needs to be able to buy you this and get you that and take you here and do what for you, and your engagement ring is supposed to be however much, and a guy is supposed to spend however much, blah blah, push gifts. Like, all of that shit doesn't really speak towards stuff that you guys are supposed to have together, or things that you guys are supposed to share that are supposed to make the relationship better. It's usually just speaking towards your desire to have someone who claims they love you spend their dime on you. Like, it's not like we've had dudes busy talking about the women that they're cheating on being whores or gold diggers. It's not like there's a situation where the babes are looking for guys or are already with guys that can spend money on them, or they want them to blow stack on them or buy them gifts and take them on trips and shit, busy complaining about the patriarchy or the fact that, men and women should be paid the same amount. Like, you never hear them complain about that shit. They usually complain about that shit when they're single and they don't have a dude that they're with. But when they have a partner, that is when now the individualism will crop up as opposed to gender wars. So in this particular case, I will disagree with whatever it is that this babe said. I'd say getting into relationships is hard because of gender wars, but relationships are hard because of a fuck ton of individualism. But all in all, I am going to leave that one aside and move things on to our very final tweet of this episode. If your woman uses any app to track her periods, just know another man is screwing her raw. Or maybe you're the one that's screwing her raw and she just wants to track her periods. Or, and this is also another situation, maybe she just wants to track her periods because she has irregular cycles, or she wants to learn her cycles. Like, why the hell is it that there's dudes that are hell-bent on proving that babes are cheating out here? Like, I get it. Maybe you were cheated on by one babe, or maybe you've noticed a couple of babes who can cheat, or maybe you just so happen to know babes who do cheat. But does it mean that every single woman cheats? No, that's not entirely the case. If you're looking for problems in such an area, then by all means, yes, there could be a babe that's tracking her periods because there's another dude that's railing her raw. And she has a dude that she hasn't opened up to about that shit because she clearly knows that she's cheating. But it doesn't mean that every single babe that has a period tracking app is actually cheating. Hell, some babes are actually doing it raw and tracking their periods with their boyfriends, or at least for their boyfriends. Because if they're gonna be doing it raw and they don't want a bloody mess all the time, or they just don't want a bloody mess, whether or not they're doing it raw, they'd much rather track their periods than don't. So are you saying that women should only ever get period tracking apps when they're cheating? Or are you saying that for a woman to cheat, she needs to get a period tracking app? Because at the end of the day, that's essentially all that this dude is making it seem. Because the reality of it is there are tons of women that are very faithful that have period tracking apps for their own reasons, but mostly related to their periods, newsflash. And there's a fuck ton of women that do not have period tracking apps and they hoe around like hell. Like, they know themselves so well, or probably they don't even care. They just check if they're on their period at some point in time. But for the rest of the time, they're busy banging it raw with someone else, whether or not they have a boyfriend. But you know what? I kind of understand where this dude is coming from. Like, trying to find a surefire way to know if a babe is cheating or not is particularly hard for a lot of guys. And there's guys that are pretty much trying to find every single way possible to know if a babe is cheating. To which I'll tell you, babes are very, very good at covering their tracks. But just like every other human being, some of them can get sloppy, but for the most part, you just need to accept one particular thing. If she's going to cheat on you, it's not like you can really stop her from doing it. The only thing that you can hope that you can do is that you can find out when it happens and you can take the necessary actions to actually move beyond that particular situation. But all in all, maybe I am wrong about this shit. Either way, I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open. On Twitter, it is at BagakaTheD. On Facebook and on IG, it is at Breaktime on my side. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.